As we've seen in previous videos, recruitment and selection are incredibly important processes. It's often said that the people who work for a business are one of its most vital assets. In this video, we're going to focus specifically on the selection process and the steps that a business will go through to pick the best candidate once they've identified a vacancy, created the key documents, and placed a job advert. So let's start by recapping these initial stages of the recruitment and selection process. Most of the time, this process will be carried out by business managers and HR, human resources. Depending on the type of role and the nature of the business, a recruitment agency might sometimes be used, an external business who will help with some of these stages of the recruitment process. The process will always start with a job evaluation, or a human resource needs analysis. Basically, understanding the business need. Who do they need to recruit? And a key stage is also to create what we call a job description, what the job involves, and a person specification, the skills, characteristics, and experience of the ideal person for the job. The next stage then is to advertise the position. And this may be done internally, for example, using the business intranet or staff notice boards, or externally, using job adverts, websites, recruitment agencies, and many other methods. Often, many businesses will use a mixture of both internal and external job adverts to find the best possible candidate. Okay, let's now look at the different ways that people who are interested in a role can apply for it and have a chance of being selected. A CV, which stands for Curriculum Vitae, is a document that allows job applicants to provide information about themselves to a potential employer. CVs are sometimes also called resumes, particularly in the US, but here in the UK we tend to stick to CV. Information provided on this CV includes work experience, education and qualifications, skills, hobbies and interests. This document can then be compared against the person specification that has been created to see whether the applicant is a good fit for the job being advertised. So now let's look at the different ways that people who are interested in a role can apply for it and have a chance of being selected. So sometimes you might simply send a CV, which stands for Curriculum Vitae, and this is a document that allows job applicants to provide information about themselves to a potential employer. CVs are sometimes called resumes, particularly in the US, but here in the UK we tend to stick to CV. Information provided on a CV includes work experience, education and qualifications, skills, hobbies and interests. This document can then be compared against the person specification that the business has created to see whether the applicant is a good fit for the job being advertised. An application form might sometimes be required in place of a CV. This is an important document that has several questions that the candidates need to answer when applying for a specific job. Sometimes businesses prefer to use application forms instead of CVs as they may have more control over the information that candidates end up providing. Often, if you're applying for a job, you might send them your CV in the hopes that they will look at it and think that you're a suitable candidate. But often, a job application is used to answer specific questions for that specific business about those specific skills. And then there's a covering letter, which usually accompanies a CV and/or an application form. It gives the person applying to a role the chance to explain why they think they're a good fit for the job, and to provide any additional information that hasn't been covered in their CV or in their application form. To all the teachers out there, show all of these videos without any ads and gain access to our growing library of over 500 teaching worksheets. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Some job adverts may ask for a combination of these three documents. They may also ask for references to be provided, which could be a letter from a previous employer or somebody else who knows the candidate well. They will usually comment on their skills, experience and character, including their attendance and their punctuality records, and whether they're reliable or not. As part of that selection process, the HR team and the managers will use these CVs and application forms that they've received, and they will narrow them down. They'll create what we call a shortlist of the best candidates, and they'll invite them for an interview. An interview is usually a face-to-face meeting where each candidate is asked a series of questions to understand how suitable they might be for the role. The answers from each of these candidates are usually scored against the same set of criteria, so that they can be easily compared to one another. You should keep in mind that since the COVID pandemic, many businesses have also been making use of telephone and video interviews, especially where there is more than one stage to an interview. So often the first interview will be on video, on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams, and then the best candidates will be invited to meet the interviewers in person. As well as interviews, applicants are sometimes asked to do tests, which may be written or practical depending on the type of job. Tests are often used to see how well candidates think and react under pressure, and will usually be linked specifically to the tasks that they need to perform in the role that they've applied for. They may have fitness tests or even what we call psychometric tests, which aim to analyse the psychology of the candidate and how well they are suited for the role in question. Sometimes applicants will be asked to take part in group activities, where they have to work together to be able to solve a problem. As well as showing their skills in completing the actual task, this can also show how they work with other people, whether they're good at being part of a team, whether they have good leadership skills, and again, how they react under pressure. So, after this interview process has taken place, the business will need to decide who to offer the job to. Reference checks will be made, usually from the individual's last employer, and then a job offer will be made, and a contract of employment given to that successful candidate. And then induction training will also be arranged, particularly when the person is new to the business and they need to learn the ropes from the beginning. As we've seen, recruitment is a long process. It takes up a lot of time and it costs a lot of money. And that's why staff retention, keeping good people within the business, is so important. If you don't do a good job of recruitment and as part of this selection, you'll have to start again and repeat the process, which is going to cost the business more time and more money. Bring this video and over 100 more to life with fun, interactive games, quizzes and case studies. Why not try the first 25 completely free by visiting BizzWizard.co.uk. Before we go any further, in this video we're going to meet Mario Moletti. Mario is the owner and head chef at a fancy London Italian restaurant called Moletti's, with a team of 30 staff. Mario's assistant chef has just moved back to Italy, so he's looking for a new assistant chef. Mario has worked hard to build his restaurant's reputation, and he wants to ensure that he finds the right person. So we're going to go through the selection process that Mario used to help us understand this important process. Well, Mario doesn't have a HR person, so instead he uses a recruitment agency that specialises in recruiting chefs. They help him to create a job description and a person specification. The job description, as we know, has details of all the jobs the assistant chef would need to do: cooking food, creating new dishes for the restaurant, managing and training the more junior kitchen staff, and ensuring hygiene standards. The assistant chef will report to Mario and will be responsible for managing the other kitchen staff. It's a full-time gig, 40 hours a week, spread across 5 days. Okay, so the job description's written, now we need our person specification, which as we know includes details of the skills and experience required. So the essential criteria included at least 5 years experience in a busy restaurant and a detailed knowledge of Italian food. So now, Mario and Julie, the recruitment agent, create a job advert which will be published on the recruitment agency's website, the restaurant's website, and in Chef magazine. Mario puts the job advert on the staff room notice board, telling all internal staff to speak to him if they're interested, or if they know anybody who might be interested. So Julie and Mario agree that by advertising the vacancy both internally and externally, they will have the best chance of finding the right person. So now Mario and Julie shortlist 3 candidates for interview, and they come up with a list of questions. Mario also wants to test the skills of the candidates in the kitchen, so he creates a MasterChef style test. In this test, they're given some ingredients to choose from, and they're asked to create and cook a new recipe for the restaurant alongside the existing kitchen staff, and then Mario and Julie will taste this dish. Mario wants to check how creative each of the candidates is and how well they will work with the team. He will also be watching them closely to check their hygiene and cleanliness standards. They also have only a limited time to cook the food, as Mario wants to see how well they work under pressure in this busy restaurant environment. The candidates will be judged on their interview performance plus the MasterChef challenge. And Mario and Julie create a scoring system to make sure that this process is fair and to compare the candidates properly. All 3 do pretty well in the interview, but the MasterChef challenge is a very mixed bag. The first candidate gets angry with the people he is working with, and he shouts at them in front of Mario. His workplace is messy, and his food was ready 5 minutes late. The second candidate seems very nervous, but once she relaxes, she creates a delicious looking dish, and she works well with all of the staff. The third candidate is very confident, but his dish doesn't look particularly Italian. Mario overhears him telling one of the staff that French food is more his thing. So Mario and Julie complete the scoring, and the second candidate, Angela, comes out with the highest score. Julie prepares an offer letter, and she contacts Angela's current employer for a reference. Angela's contract of employment is prepared and signed, and her induction plan at the restaurant is created. Mario is really pleased that he spent the time going through such a detailed recruitment and selection process, as Angela has fitted in so well. She's respected by her team, and her food is getting rave reviews. Bookings are at an all-time high, and sales and profits are booming. Unfortunately, it's not always going to be as successful as it has been with Angela. In fact, in Mario's previous restaurant, the owner wasn't half as thorough when it came to recruitment, and this meant that a person who had lied on their CV was actually offered the job. This person was slow, the customers complained about the food, and there were even some reports of customers experiencing food poisoning. The take-ins at the restaurant plummeted, and after a surprise visit from the Environmental Health Department, the restaurant was closed down. Having been through this experience, Mario vowed that when he opened his restaurant, he would learn from his old boss's mistakes. He would make sure that there was a really strong recruitment and selection process put in place to ensure that his restaurant was more successful. Each of the video courses over at BizzWizard.co.uk also includes an interactive business case study that applies the knowledge learned to a real-world scenario. There are over 1,000 multiple-choice questions, each with detailed feedback, which tests students' understanding of the content. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? If you end up getting an exam question about this topic, it's important to think through the stages of the recruitment process and the potential consequences we've discussed of getting it wrong at each individual stage. As we've seen with Mario, it's a good idea to use more than one source of information about the people who are applying for a job, including their CV or application form, how well they do in their interview, the results of any tests or group activities, and their previous employer's references. That way, you'll get a much better overall picture of how good a particular candidate actually is, and hopefully you won't find yourself in the same position as Mario's old boss. And that sums up the entire recruitment and selection process. This has been the BizzWizard. See you in the next video.